All right, folks. Good morning and welcome to the Olimoleague. I have the wrong overlay on. One moment. Here, you start with intro. I do. It's too early
Okay,
for this.
in the top left as the blue Zerg, it is TCM's Soulkey.
And his opponent in the bottom left is going to be a barcode. Take it to that Walmart scanner. Beep, 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 beep. It's Seed. Alright, so Seed has actually not been like so great. This breaks my heart to say because I'm actually a big Seed fan. We got to meet him at Hell's Time. I can say about a million wonderful things about him. But every time we've seen him compete more recently, he's been kind of stuck with all-in builds. He's been stuck around two bases. But more importantly, he seems to do the same builds, like whether they work or not. So it'd be like, oh, my Warp Prism Adept all-in didn't work game one? Well, let me try it game two.
Yeah. I do remember that, but I honestly, I don't think we cast this much this month. I mean, I definitely know we didn't cast this much this month as last month, yet I cannot remember that much of Seed's games to get him in the Olimoleague finals.
You know what? I don't give a fuck because it's not Zerg, alright? So don't question it.
Yeah,
Just
right?
go with it.
Don't question it. This is supposed to be some other Zerg, but we actually changed it now. But I don't know why, but I do remember that you bringing up that, yes, it was unimpressive and that it was a lot of the same things and it was, like, sometimes, like, really cheesy, which cheese and all-ins, like, they work like any other race's all-ins, I feel now. Like, Protoss used to have all-ins that would work even if you scouted them. I mean, everyone remembers the two-base Immortal all-in working even if, partying was scouted for days. So now it is, like, something that is, okay, you have to scout it and then you have to appropriately defend. So it's not something you do every single game. It's something you throw in a best of 5 or best of 7 or maybe once in a best of 3. But, Seed has been doing that. He hasn't looked too impressive, and Soulkey is a very fearsome opponent. And it's on Arena, which might make him want to do something a little more aggressive to abuse the short rush distance. Hopefully catch Soulkey without preparation.
Well, one thing I was going to comment on, and we're actually not seeing happening here, so this is good, is we've seen Queen drops all too many times on this map. But more importantly, we've seen them out of Soulkey all too many times on this map. So Seed, I hope, was playing a little bit, I guess, paranoid of that. I mean, I like that he's kind of rushing his production here instead of taking a natural, but we're kind of heading to that direction where maybe it is a one base all in, and then that's where question marks get raised because I don't think Protoss really have those.
Question?
Terran have those, to be certain. I don't know so much about Protoss.
Yeah.
Either way, a couple of adepts doing a considerable amount of damage, and I guess one of the nice things is if you don't have a natural base, you don't have a whole lot to macro with, so you can focus on the micro and get a few more kills. So about 8 workers killed here brings Soulkey down to 14. I mean, damn, that was a lot more damage than I expected.
Me too. That was too much damage, in fact. We'll see, though. We'll see.
For a disruptor drop?
That's what I'm like. Okay, so if it was gonna be 3 more gateways, I would have been really worried that Soulkey just had to make another round of drones, right? Like he wouldn't have that much really to work with if he had to make roaches, and he's getting kind of an early roach warn because there's no nexus for Seed. But if it's a harassment-based Warp Prism disruptor drop, I mean, the disruptor drops, the thing is that they can get the army, they can get a lot of drones. I mean, they have a lot of options, but it's if it's expected, then splits are pretty good. And he did scout it. So
okay, so this is really weird because I mean there's a sentry with this. So my thoughts are, okay, bring the disruptor across the map, drop it, but he's left too soon. So it's like he's gonna get behind this, do a little bit of damage, use the force field to choke off that mineral line and deny mining, then what, go home and pick up the disruptor? Like, that's a considerable amount of units to kind of abandon ship for.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. Well,
maybe he's gonna wait till he has 2. Either way, this attack doesn't really do that much. It trades out for Zerglings this time, not so much for workers. The other aspect of a disruptor drop that I find rather intriguing is when we see it used versus Terran. It's pretty much explicitly used in a manner that involves keeping the Terran player at home because of those scary marine timing pushes. Here, the necessity certainly isn't there, and I don't know that you can disruptor drop a Zerg and make them stay at home the same way you can a Terran.
We'll see about that, yeah.
Well, what furthers to make this weird for me is just like, he does actually expand, right? So this isn't like a one base all in. This is just like a very strange way to get to a second base. But 2 disruptors loaded up. The damage he's done so far this game has certainly been worth this later expansion. And we have a Baneling Nest coming out of Soulkey, a move that's become all too popular recently among Zerg.
Yeah, this isn't surprising, but it is this game where you see staying on one base for so long to get to these drops is so weird. We do have the splits coming down from Soulkey. You can only move a queen so much. Because he did scout this, and I just don't know how much he's going to do and how much is really going to take away from Seed's defense. Now, Seed has a Mothership Core, of course, and Soulkey really doesn't have like that big of an army. You know, because Seed was on one base, Soulkey didn't really feel comfortable going to a third base, which makes sense. So it's not like he has an overwhelming amount of roaches, but he does have those very scary banelings. And the disruptors, I mean, I was considering maybe they would be like helpful against the baneling style, but not if they're still on the other side of the map.
Yeah, the banelings are going to waddle in. There's a couple of force fields for this. Nice start. Keeps that pylon alive. The dream is alive in Portland, baby. Actually, I take that back. Splash damage is way too strong.
Yeah, how? Like,
I guess
way too far away.
the radius of a baneling exploding is much bigger than we anticipated.
Damn.
He's going to fall back to the mineral line. Again, I just want to comment, Seed doesn't have 100 force fields to throw down, but he's making really good use out of the few that he has. Unfortunately, that was the few that he had, and now they're starting to run out of juice. Pylon is going to get overcharged. All it's going to take is about a baneling or 2 to crack that. Zealot soaks the hits. Not too bad. It's going to fall apart once again. The Disruptors are finally brought back home, by the way. It took a long time to get across the map, so using these against the Queens wouldn't be too bad. There you go. It's about 2 of them, but the Disruptors almost go down in the process. Getting a little bit scary here with the Banelings, but still, Seed holding strong. That 36 army supply. This looks a little bit harrowing for the Protoss player in this situation, but as we can see, Soulkey realizes he has dedicated far too much. And game number 1 is going to go to Seed. Not what I expected at all, by the way. Like, but what kills me is, like, I feel where Soulkey got hurt the most in this wasn't Disruptor. He lost 4 drones and 1 queen to Disruptor drops. Okay, I want to emphasize that. It was the 2 Adepts that come with, like, a regular macro opening that devastated. Like,
yes, I agree. Like, killing 8 workers so early on, he was down to 14 workers at that point.
Yeah.
Is pretty big. But it was also, I feel like, it confused us, and not that we're like obviously playing on the Korean like top 100 Grandmaster ladder, because we're not. So maybe this is something that Seed does a lot. Maybe it's a Seed thing. Maybe it's Protosses are experimenting thing. I'm not sure, but it was like it almost looked like Soulkey was also like, I'm not sure what's happening, so let me try something. And obviously that something was wrong. So I mean, he might have thought like for the entire game, okay, one base all in, one base all in, one base all in, and then when he realized that it wasn't, he was like, oh shit, there's no way I'm gonna catch up in macro now, so let's just go for it.
I think there is a degree of this as well where he may have just been caught. He, like, the way I'm sitting there confused trying to analyze, like, why one base? What the fuck? Like, that may have been Soulkey's thoughts as well. Like, absolutely.
Well, I mean, on one hand, I'm glad it wasn't a normal PvZ, because that has become, like, really, you know, okay, this step's going to happen, this step's going to happen. But on the other, I don't know what this means for the second map, which is going to be Frozen Temple, Soulkey's choice. Oh, we're missing gaming.
Very, very interesting. Frozen Temple has had some changes recently. Nothing that should really affect this match, though. And I think it's been about a week and a half at this point as well, so I don't think we're too worried about the audience not knowing about the differences of the maps. But just a quick, while we're getting the game going, you had the natural base choke shrunken a little bit, and you also had a small extension on the high ground.
Go away, baby. Go away.
Wow, your cat that close is so fucking loud.
She's not that close. It's like I haven't picked up.
I kind of feel like she could have been, though. So I had a fun idea for some downtime if we get some today, by the way, because I was watching more Drunk History and such last night. I vaguely, and it got me thinking, like, I vaguely remember a lot of like fairy tales / old stories, right? We can go whenever they're ready. Like, for example, Rip Van Winkle. I remember the concept more than the actual story. And I was like, we should tell versions of it and then Google the story for the other person and see how wrong they are.
Okay.
Not for that one, but I mean, like, other things.
Yeah.
Anyways, intro time. We'll see you guys in a sec. All right, folks. Welcome back. Game number 2. Spawning here on the top left side of the map. It's going to be the Blue Zerg player, TCM's Soulkey.
In the bottom right, as the red Protoss, it is C.
It's a mighty quick drone scout coming down too.
What do you think's gonna happen?
That's the thing. Like, I don't know.
Rush.
He's like, okay, you know what? Well, actually, if this was Tails or maybe even SOS, you could justify that. But I think he might actually be worried Seed pulls out something really crazy like proxies or such. I'm not saying necessarily gateways, but of course, you keep an eye on where those pylons are, and more importantly, the expansion timings, and you can kind of guesstimate, oh, well, there should be a Stargate or a Robo at home right now.
Yeah. Well, it also, I guess, is going to scout the intention to take a Nexus, which is something C did not try for a very long time last game. So.
No, that was again, like, I almost wish that we'd see him have that same similar opening where you go for more like 2 gates, get those adepts out, get some damage down while expanding behind it. But one of the notes I guess you brought up last game. Oh, hey, LivyB just hosted us. Shout out to LivyB and all our fans. We also had Scaland just reset for 3 months as well. I was going to say, you also noted he didn't take a third base. And that's something where this game, I think if Soulkey does take a third, is going to make a drastically different impact on his army. I think one of the things that kind of sucked last game was not only did he have to pull the queens, but in doing so lost a lot of larva, so like he had a couple of bucks at the end of the day. This third base will help make sure that's not a case that we run into again.
This is much more normal ZvP.
Much normal, very ZVZ.
Yeah, very ZVZ.
Shibi.
I guess if it wasn't for that last game just throwing everything off, I would have brought up the all-in that Zergs can do. Just like a Zerg can do the all-in of drops on Arena, there is a Queen like creep push on this map as well. Kind of the replacement for Laralac, but that is also once in a blue moon. I feel like it might have just been simply like figured out by now. Like Protoss is their whole entire, I feel like the last 5 months, let's say, maybe a little bit less, of Legacy of the Void has been about them like trying to figure out how to live long enough to get to Immortals, so defending the multiple all-ins that can occur.
Yeah, it's funny because for this matchup especially, I really do feel like there are gigantic shifts in the dynamic of what is considered OP in the actual game that gets played. Like, you watch Roach Ravager Timies crush a Protoss, and you're like, wow, how can Protoss ever win? Then you watch a Protoss go like, 3 Robo, give a lot of Immortals, you're like, wow, how could Zerg ever win? Like, there's a lot of back and forth for this. But the one thing I guess the Blizzard team's looking at, for those who haven't been keeping up to date with some of the proposed balance changes and thoughts on the game, they've been discussing making Mutalisks less of an issue for Protoss, which I feel like, didn't we suggest that in a cast, like about making static defense better?
Maybe we did. I don't know. It's just a lot of things. But okay, but I want to bring up how okay, so you brought up, how, PvZ can look imbalanced for like either race, like very, very quickly, like different game to different game. Failings again, once again for Soulkey. But the amount of crap that like David Kim has to deal with, and it's funny that you see it so obviously in this recent update from 2 different sides. He had like people yelling at him that the reason Protoss is difficult to play right now is because muta swaps happen. That's why they have to go Phoenix. And he was like, okay, I can see your point. And then you have players like Bly come out and say like, what? You're so stupid, David Kim. That's not why they go Phoenix.
Yeah, then you have like Hawk arguing with
that.
There's
like race war on Twitter because of it.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Can't get you a break.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, can I have you backstage for a sec? How much fucking money did he pay you, and why didn't I get any of that?
Hundreds of dollars. I'm rolling in money.
Tens of dollars. You wouldn't even believe it, Ripken. You wouldn't believe it if you saw it. All right, so the Adepts getting some pretty nice damage in. Unfortunately, nothing too dangerous just yet. The Queens are a little bit out of position if they want to go over to the other mineral lines, but it looks like he is just going to fall back with them.
Yeah.
Double Stargates did get thrown down, and it's going to be a double Oracle.
Interesting.
This is not just interesting. I really like this for a lot of different reasons, and one of those reasons are anything that involves lots of lings and lots of banlings.
Yeah. I was gonna say that, like, I think initially, like, 2 oracles is fine. If he goes into Phoenix afterwards, okay, like, whatever. But I did see, like, this can work out to help out with the Ling Baneling attacks that have been worrying Protosses, and he is
Well,
going to continue making oracles.
There was a joke game. Well, we call it a joke game. It's actually a real strategy from a Protoss player in Europe named Goblin during the Team qualifiers, and he intentionally went like 4 Stargate, like all oracles. Like, it was ridiculous. But the thing that was crazy about it was working. Like, it mutilated queens, it killed roaches, it killed hydras. Like, the only limiting factor really was their energy. For Seed to do this, take a player who's like, once GSL champion, right? Give him the hands of this weirder strategy. Right? No BM there. I'm actually really curious to see how he utilizes this, because I think Seed with 8 to 10 oracles can do
8 to 10.
I think we're going 8 to 10 on this. I don't think this stops at 6.
Okay, no, I agree that I think if he was given time, he would be able to. But the attack is occurring now. Soulkey's +1
Right,
finishes.
he's gonna kill the Banelings though. Look at this, not a problem. Cook him up, shook him up. I like Banelings on the half shell.
Soulkey was like, I'm going to win this tournament because I got to face a Protoss, and Protoss is easy thanks to this Baneling thing. And then Seed was like, I got to face a Zerg, better practice against this Baneling thing.
It's so crazy to me, by the way. There's no shift in strategy / meta / anything that's been so dynamic as this Banelings coming back to the matchup, because it's like a year, a bit of Legacy of the Void with the beta included, not a single Baneling in sight.
Yeah.
Dark does it one time, boom, everyone's doing it.
Yeah. I really want. So this like specifically is
Look,
what's coming
this is
out,
gonna
right?
kill
Like
Queens. This is
+1.
so stupid. Look at the transfuses going into that though. Oh my god, pushes it back.
Didn't even kill an Oracle though. So like, okay. This is
energy for energy though is the way I look at that fight.
Yeah.
With the more expensive potential loss being for Seed than for Soulkey.
But I want Baneling drop to come back. Okay, that's what I've been waiting for. Because so the problem. A lot of the problem is that force fields are not used anymore. Like, we noticed that at the very beginning of Legacy of the Void. People just stopped using sentries. People were still trying to use playing Stalker all-ins and whatnot, but they weren't using sentries. And that kind of held true for the most Legacy of the Void. As you can see now, like, you warp in, like, maybe top, like, at most 3, I feel. And they can be very useful, but that opened up a lot of opportunity for Banelings. But that's why you just go over the force fields.
There's a concern I have where Seed keeps burning all of his Oracle energy. I mean, this is like if you were constantly cloaking and uncloaking Banshees. It's just not worth it. Like, you'll lose out too much on it. And let's not forget, to actually activate the ability costs like 25, and then it's like energy per second after that or whatever. But it's that's like burning a bunch of force fields needlessly. Now, this Oracle count did go up to 8, by the way, so nailed it. But I am curious what his plans afterwards are, because Oracles will not carry you through the end of the game, but they will scrap like no other early on. And their attack speed is like, well, it's unmatched in a lot of situations, frankly.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it gets harder and harder to control, like literally, when you have these air units clumped up. They don't actually clump very much. You can't really micro them like mutas. You can micro them like Banshees, and even then Banshees in the likes of 8 or 10, they're gonna start spreading away from each other and dying. Exactly what's happening here. Like, so he loses 1 to the Spore Crawl, obviously, but then 1 gets like distracted and just goes off to fight the queens, and it you just can't make it as precise as like muta harassment is my point, and that's a little unfortunate, I feel, for Terran and Protosses. They want to feel like mutas too.
So this is really cool. First off, yeah, the little sad face I can like imagine you making. I was gonna say though, one of the things I find interesting is the way Seed's transitioning out of this. I really like the idea of storms.
Yeah.
I'm like 50-50 on Blink, because Blink and weapon upgrades are never really bad if you've got enough stalkers, but he's getting to 4 bases. He's playing this unconventional style, and what I love about this is the fact that it is working against somebody as good as, say, Soulkey. Like, I'm not saying this has won him the game yet, but he is in a situation where his army's actually good enough to take what's available on the map. I mean, you consider, okay, Hydras should tear those Oracles apart, and I would agree with you. But the amount of force fields available could segment off the Hydras, and then they would just melt. Lings can't exactly flood on top of everything. There's lots of stasis wards being placed all over the map, a la Fear Dragon style. It's going to catch a lot of these Lings.
It's just so dumb.
Now, Seed can just move over here, or just sit on top of it with the Oracles. It doesn't matter, because he can just kill all these Lings once that wears off. And in fact, oh my god, he could just land 2 storms. 2 sick as fuck storms to kill this.
So stasis traps actually count as buildings, if you didn't know.
Yes.
So he has 5 right now, but he had 6. And I like, imagine him putting down more.
From what I understand, though, it does not count towards the game timer.
Yeah, it'd be like creep tumors.
Yeah.
Which also, you can see how many creep tumors are down. Just in case you wanted to know, there's 70 creep tumors. Okay, that's a little bit unlucky. I mean, this is all, it's all very cute. Like, it isn't actually super affected the game yet. It's a good thing that Soulkey was trying to do Ling run buys, because it might have affected the game in a big way if he tried to push in with, like, Hydras into those traps. But this reminds me of back, like, when Oracles were first introduced with this new spell, people were experimenting a lot with stasis traps. Like, they were going multiple oracles. We were going multiple oracles for these traps, but it's something that I think is forgotten when you only have 1 or 2. Revelation is a lot better, especially because you have to face lurkers eventually.
Sick internet bonus points to anyone, to the first person who finds the VOD of this on YouTube. I got a video where I was showing Mindsandy's Penguin how stasis trap works in the beta through Archon mode, where I set up like the sickest like disruptor / stasis ward trap.
He's like tank pushing.
This is so
like,
weird.
Slowly siege hop. Once again, the Lings are gonna trigger this and at least alert Soulkey to it.
That does kill a lot, not kill, but rather removes a lot of fodder from the potential fight. Now, he can't take on these lurkers. He doesn't have immortals. He's starting to produce them now. But between storms, lots of cannons, potential stasis wards, because let's be honest, Soulkey doesn't know how many more are up here. This is kind of a herring spot to go. Use his banelings on the rocks. Meanwhile, Adepts do manage to sneak up to the north side of the map, so that's a lot of Adepts to get to a base, but they all waste shots on the spine crawlers. This actually pulls Soulkey back for the time being, and maybe Seed remembered that he was a GSL champion, and he's really bust out those old genetics, because like he is kicking ass, man.
Well, I mean, it is always funny to bring up his championship, because he's one of the forgotten champions. That was the Beach championship, but he did have a run, I believe, in the GSL that looked very strong months ago. So this still isn't very recent, but months ago. In Legacy of the Void was my point, though. Like, he, at one point, looked like a very strong Protoss, like a Protoss savior. But that only lasted, obviously, for like a couple of weeks. Well, so it is nice to see him come back to that form.
Wasn't that the guy who cheated or match fixed?
Oh.
Rifkin knows a little bit of StarCraft history.
Shut
up. We got the Tempest on the way, so that's kind of expected for the Broodlords. It's also an alternative way to deal with the Lurkers. So a 3rd Stargate got slapped down. He started investing in upgrades a little while back. I just assumed this was for the Oracles. I didn't realize he was actually going for a full-on swap at this point. There's going to be some Immortals underneath this, but I am just astonished that this has gotten to the point where he's even feeling comfortable enough to take this base. Stasis Trap's going to go down to buy some time. Whoop!
I love his attempts to not just use the stasis traps defensively in obvious positions, but actually like leapfrog with them and add to his defense. I think he might have tried continuing to harass them if they didn't get denied so easily. He lost 2 and now 3 off the bat, but I like this better.
You refer to it like siege tank hopping forward and all that. I actually think it's a lot more like Liberators, the way you just kind of like go 2 by 2 by 2, but I mean, either way, the point still is it's odd to look at. Now, this army supply is looking a little bit strange. Where are those Templar? Where are those Storms? Here we go, way in the backside.
Soulkey's army isn't near good enough. It's actually big enough, but not here.
He has picked off a significant amount of the Oracles, by the way, knocking them back down to 3. The reason I bring this up is not because we're really worried about Oracle damage. And nice contaminates out of Soulkey, by the way, but because it's the Stasis Wards. Like, look over here. It catches 5 Lurkers. This could have been devastating.
The cannon line, by the way.
Yeah, well, the cannon line's amazing, but look, 1 Lurker makes it to the mineral line, all thanks to the Stasis Ward. I mean, this was kind of a big deal. So losing more of those potential Stasis Wards through the Oracles was unfortunate. Now, 3 going forward's not bad, because at this point, let's be honest, he's mostly looking for Revelation. Those cannons are nasty, damn.
So many of them.
I want to put down like 3 or 4 more. What I love about the idea for the cannons, though, right, is that I think at the time he put these down, he's worried about Lings and Hydras running by. And to be honest, like 150 minerals from these cannons, like that's kind of worth trading up for Hydras and Lings in small amounts. And this has bought him time, certainly, and the comfort to get to this Tempest number.
Yeah. I mean, all things considered, this has been kind of a passive game ever since the first Baneling attempt was denied. The Ling run buys were just taken care of by stasis traps, and it really was a game of both of them trying to get to that huge macro game. And now they both gotten here, so the question is, like, which one is better? We have Soulkey with a pretty nice air composition because it includes Corruptors and Queens for Transfuse.
I was going to pull this
Tempest back. Seed has Revelation, obviously, with his oracles, and he has storms, more importantly. No Archons, but because he has so many storms, I'm not sure that matters.
I think he's just waiting to burn some of that energy first. I mean, he is supply capped. So, well, I say supply capped almost like it sounds like supply blocked, but I say capped because we're at 200 on both sides of the field pretty much. Upgrades do look pretty damn good for Seed. I gotta say, those Blink Stalkers, if the Lurkers aren't here, if the Tempests actually get to pick those off, then the Stalkers have no problem blinking underneath these Broodlords. With +3 weapons, they'll be able to focus them down very quickly.
And there's really not enough Lurkers on the ground to make that, like, too scary and actually being picked off by the Tempest. So I don't know if Soulkey really wants to push in here, to be honest. Like, his air army is not bad, but it is a couple of storms away from just being entirely disintegrated, and he has no bank yet, despite being on a good number of bases.
Seed, on the other hand, does have a considerable amount of minerals, but is hurting a bit on gas. This Templar gets caught here on the backside, but the cannon saves it, actually. That's kind of nice to see. He's pretty much out of juice at the front line when it comes to storms. I think he's got about 2 left.
This is actually a terrible spot for the Corruptors to take, not just because of the storms. They're actually running out now, but because of the cannons they keep running into.
Yeah, the cannons actually have a great for this. Again, +3 Blink Stalkers as he continues to warp more in are going to be great assets going forward. The +3, I just really cannot get over how big of a deal that's going to make when it comes to actual fights. But Tempest still kiting around are getting picked off slowly and surely, being replaced as they go down. Focusing now on the Broodlords more than anything else, knowing that the Stalkers can easily take care of the Corruptors. This starts getting pushed back, and Soulkey, as you mentioned, doesn't, despite having almost half the map, in fact, he does have half the map under his control, he doesn't have the money from these bases to replace this army very easily. In fact, can't even hit maxed.
Yep, that is certainly a problem. He's about to have pretty good upgrades for his Carapace at the very least, but not even his Air Carapace. He's even upgrading his ground.
This is kind of that point that we talked about before. Like, I think Soulkey's going to take a good fight, but ultimately Seed might finally be at that Tempest count that is going to look pseudo-unbreakable. Oh. There's no Vipers to abduct forward. There's no Parasitic Bombs to even help them to center. But more importantly, there's not a Corruptor count anymore that can easily deal with this. And even what more if they do, how do you deal with the Immortals and Stalkers on the ground?
Yeah, I was going to say it. At 21 Corruptors, but only 4 Broodlords, that is something the Stalkers can take care of. I think that's why he's building Lurkers, which is not a bad idea. Stop them at least from blinking in and try and continue to win the air war. But he stopped upgrading his air, which I brought up earlier, and I'm curious about that. He also, like, remade Hydras, but I thought that was in an emergency. You know, like, oh crap, I can't make Broodlords right now. So he's actually going to play pretty safe, not continue to push onto creep.
Mush.
Mush is push and move.
That's also what you tell dogs to do on slides.
You don't tell them mush.
Yeah, you do.
Mush is like what you eat in jail.
What do they say then when you're doing like the bobsled and mush? Whatever. Oh, mush is so different than mush. Like it's 2 different pronunciations of the U.
Jesus Christ.
Go fook yourself.
Fook me.
Mush. Alright, the looming death that are these Tempests continue to push forward through this, focusing on some of those Lurkers. Detection is out on most of these. It's worth noting a couple of them don't have Revelation cast on them, though, so hopefully Seed realizes this as he continues to get back further and further into a bit of a corner. But those Corruptors, even if they take on the Tempest at this point, I think enough of the ground has been weaned and pruned away at.
That was a pretty cool split there at the last second from Seed to blink in a concave around the Lurkers, because the Lurkers were a problem and the Immortals deal with them.
Pure Blink Stalker Warpins are actually going to be a bit of a problem if Soulkey, continues to make a bunch of blings. As we can see, they're actually getting on top of that ground army not too poorly, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to whose bank was looking better, and the answer is definitely Seed.
Soulkey can make like a bajillion investors if he wanted.
I don't know about a jillion, maybe 10 or 12, but yeah.
Yeah, he actually just used his entire mineral bank, which is not very big, in Lings.
But it was 50 at Lings, and I like this move actually quite a bit, because Soulkey is going to find his opponent doesn't have anything to really deal with these, right? Like, so much of what's on the ground is Stalkers, so much of what's in the air is Tempest, neither of which are particularly great units versus Lings.
Yeah. Well, you know what is great versus Lings is SimCity and cannons, so I would have liked this, especially if Seed was being very not safe, basically, of how he expands, but he is safe with how he expands. The bottom left is also covered with cannons.
The Void Rays are certainly an interesting choice. They're like the grown-up oracles this stage of the game. Depths warped in. We're going to have some Zealots that were warped in as well, coming back to try and deal with these Lings. I mean, this is nasty. It's worth noting. Soulkey does have these upgraded with Adrenal Glands. They've got +2. They're not going to destroy an army, but they will kill a building very quickly. So protecting that Nexus, pretty important right now. We did have a resub a little while ago. Thank you too, as far as it goes. But Soulkey checking the map, perusing. I guess he doesn't actually know. Oh, he does know about this. He's gonna make some banelings to try and deal with it, but he gets chased off by the adepts. Top right side of the map, so check vision. Forces under attack. Nexus does get killed straight up. A couple of Broodlords still left in play, but nothing too major. I'm actually really interested in these Vipers. Neither of them have any energy to do anything with, so I don't know what he's bringing them on the front lines for.
F2? I don't know. Well, it's a pretty scary Hydra army. Hydras at this point aren't supposed to be that useful. You know, when you have Storms and Archons, but just not a very big Protoss army, so...
Well, there's your answer, by the way. Yeah, just abducts a couple of Tempests, they get picked off. I mean, this isn't all of Seed's army, but this is an expensive portion of it.
Is Seed... He's not gonna lose yet, but it's actually a little bit worrying. Now, Soulkey, to note, he never took that expansion in the middle left, the one he lost, and the top right isn't actually mining and is being harassed. So, they're both on pretty poor mining, as Seed is only on one base.
Well, Void Rays, you know what? We've talked about this before. When there's enough of them, they can beat Hydras. The Prismatic Alignment, of course, adds nothing extra to the fight, but he's pushing this back. Drones got pulled, probes got pulled. We had worker wars going on underneath the real fight. This is like kiddie daycare. Like, okay, we'll drop our kids off over here while we fight on the side.
The Adept ended up being pretty useful against those Hydras, even though Soulkey was trying to micro against them. As, of course, Seed never went for charge. He never brought the charge launch, which I was going to bring up in the mid-game, but I feel like everything else is so much more interesting. But he was going like Major Blink Stalker, and now he's going Major Adept.
We got a lot of workers die this game.
Well, especially after they're just pulled into the fight. That makes sense.
300-something Lings died as well in the making of this game. 15 Tempests. That's quite a unit loss count. But as we see, the Void Rays proven to be not too bad. Soulkey pretty much out of steam. I think he's feeling it too. 30 workers, 4 army supply, and barely any mining going on. And he's going to lose what little mining he's got up here in the top right. Seed, however, is still fully saturated, happily mining off 2 or 3 bases. GG. I would, if you asked me this time, I would never in a million years tell you that Seed beats Soulkey 2-0. Maybe 2-1 I could see, but 2-0 in recent days? This is astonishing to me.
Yeah, that... I don't even want to say that Soulkey was off. That first game, anyone would have been off. Seed did something really weird. In the second game, you don't blame him for trying to do that Baneling attack, because everyone's doing it. Like, it's pretty powerful.
I know, 8 oracles. Who goes 8 oracles? Only one other guy, and he's like been Masters Europe.
Okay, well, that's going to send us into the next round, or not, the next match, same round, rather. Reality versus Scarlet.
Okay, that's going to be a fun game as well. We're going to go to our first commercial break of the day, though, before we hop into it. So do stick around, friends, and we'll see you in a few minutes for that TVZ coming up next.